Welcome to English Module 2, Verb Tense. In this section, we will be covering the different verb tenses and when and how to use them. We will cover the past, the present, and the future tenses in what is called the indicative mood. But we will also talk a bit about the subjunctive mood as well when we talk about the future. In each section, we will look at the simple, the progressive, and the perfect tenses as they relate to the past, present, and future. Welcome to Module 2A, Past Tense. The past tense is used to refer to events that happened in the past. That is to say, that happened previously to the current time. This tense is normally used when telling a story or reporting some event in history. And one of the most common use is what we would call the simple past tense. So let's take a look. The simple past tense is usually formed by adding the letters ed to the end of a present tense verb, such as look becomes looked, call becomes called, and jump becomes jumped. There are, however, many what we would call irregular verbs whose simple past tense form follows strange patterns. For example, see does not become seed, but saw. Likewise, eat becomes ate, and bring becomes brought. So be aware that there are strange patterns that don't fall into this ed pattern. But the simple past tense traditionally indicates a state or an action that took place in past time. This should be understood as the default tense for referring to actions that take place earlier in time. But let's look at some examples. In these examples, we can see a few past tense verbs, namely, Johnny looked for his sister Susie, Fred served his neighbor, and Liz encouraged the girls. In all of these examples, the event takes place in a past time frame. Note the events are simply being reported as fact. Now, this does not mean that these events are indeed true facts of history, because people can lie, but simply I want to convey that the simple past tense is the general tense used for reporting events in history. Next, we have the past perfect tense. Perfect tenses indicate a state of being or an action that is completed. It is best to think of the word perfect as meaning complete or finished. The past perfect tense then indicates a state of being or an action that was completed at a certain time in the past. The past perfect is usually formed by having the auxiliary verb had plus the past participle, which for regular verbs is the same as the simple past tense, but irregular verbs are often different in their past participle. The past perfect tense usually is used to indicate a state of being or an action that was started and completed before the time frame of the simple past. So here are some examples of how the simple past tense and the perfect past tense are used together to make complex time frames. In the first example here, after the students had taken the test, they took a break. We see an irregular verb taking place here. The past tense of take is took, while the past participle is different, taken. But they're being used to convey a complex time frame of two different events. Let's keep looking at our examples here. Ryan had locked the library before the last student left. In our third example, the boys had finished their food when the girls arrived. In each of these examples, you can see two different events taking place. One of them comes before each other in time, and the past perfect tense helps indicate which event had already been completed by the time of the simple past tense. Note that these examples, we have adverbs such as after or before or when to help us indicate the sequence of time for each of these actions. And that the past perfect tense is used for the event that takes place the furthest back in time. Finally, we have the past progressive. Because progressive tenses show continuing action, the past progressive indicates continuing action through past time. Progressive tenses are usually formed using the auxiliary or helping verb be and adding a present participle. These are words with ing at the end of them. Since we're dealing with the past progressive, we will use the past tense form of the verb to be, was or were, but we will keep the present participle. Now, take note that it is the auxiliary verb, the helping verb, was and were, that takes on the weight on telling us the time frame when the main verb happens, while the main verb itself remains the present participle. This is because the present participle carries the weight of communicating the progressive nature of the action, these ing words. They often tell us that something is in the process of happening, while that auxiliary verb, was or were, tells us when it is happening. So in the past progressive, it is used in a few different yet related ways, but let's look at some examples to see how these work. One of the ways the past progressive is used is to indicate an action in progress at a specific point in time in the past. For example, my neighbor's dog was barking at 3 o'clock. In this sentence, we have a time frame given, and the past continuous is used to indicate the action is happening in that time frame. Another way it's used is for a past action that provides the time frame for some other event that is usually stated in the simple past time. For example, we have, I was having a wonderful dream when my alarm buzzed. So the alarm buzz is the simple past event, and that the past progressive is getting the action that was happening at the same time as that past event. Likewise, it can simply be used to refer to a repeated action. In our last example here, we have Joel was praying, right, throughout the whole operation. In this instance, was praying is indicating a thing he continued to repeat to do over a period of time. Generally, the emphasis of the progressive is that the action is in the act of happening at a given point in time. Thus, the past progressive emphasizes an action that is in the act of happening at a given time in the past. Ultimately, how you talk about past events can become complicated when you have multiple events taking place at different points in time in the past. But with the help of adverbs such as before, after, while, during, when, or later, and these three past tenses we've just discussed, you can begin to communicate clearly about the sequence and significance of certain events in the past. What is important to keep in mind is that your verb tenses must stay consistent throughout your writing. Even if you have many adverbs of time, you can still confuse your audience if your verb tenses do not line up with the time frame you've created by your adverbs. But with practice, you can begin to get better at communicating the sequence of past events, both in speech and in writing. Thank you for watching this short video on past tense verbs. I hope this was informative and helpful as an introduction to the complexities that is past tense. If you have any questions, feel free to leave some comments below and I will try to get back to you on those. And as always, check the description below for more information on this topic.